Hi, Yaz, how are you doing?
Not bad at all. How are you, Nicola?
I'm very good, thank you. Thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome.
Um, I'd like to start with, can you tell me a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it?
Okay, sure. So I have a consultancy in hospitality.
Okay.
So I have been in the world of hospitality for 28 years. And I initially started by washing dishes in Pizza Hut and worked
Right.
my way up all the way to senior level, up to director level.
Yeah.
Then in between that, I've had my own franchises and my own independent businesses. And the world of hospitality has allowed me to work and have my consultancy in the UK,
Yeah.
Europe, and the Middle East. And
Okay.
currently have my consultancy focusing mainly on operational issues within businesses. So if a business is struggling, I would go in there and help them turn it around operationally. I also profess in scalability of a business, working with all sort of branded, recognized companies,
Yeah.
as well as independents. So that's what I do.
Very interesting. So, you meet lots of small businesses and small and medium-sized businesses, I imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. So in the early days of my consultancy, it was very sort of niche, small, independent, mom and dad sort of operators.
Yeah.
As times moved on, I do focus on the bigger groups. I say that anything up to about 200 sites is
Yeah.
probably what I get involved in. But I have a soft spot for independent operators because someone's got to start somewhere. So I do help them along as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Since you started your consultancy, what has been the biggest learning for you as a business owner?
Particularly for the consultancy.
Mm,
Yeah. So particularly for the consultancy, I would say as a business owner is not to get emotionally attached to your business. I
yeah,
think that's really important. As much as it's my consultancy, I have a lot of other consultants that work for me and certainly get involved in the business. But as much as it's my baby and I've nurtured it and grown it and watered it and fed it, it's definitely not emotionally attached because just like that, it would disappear. And I think that's purely through experience. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. Yeah, it's not to get emotionally attached to it.
good one. So, thinking about the people that you've worked with in the past in that long career in hospitality, is there any leaders or an inspirational people that you've worked with that really stand out to you?
Um, there have been many
Yeah,
mentors
yeah,
in my career, but I think the one that probably stood out for me was the person who showed me the true value of hospitality from a very early age. And that was probably my grandma,
okay.
who was selling essentially street food on the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania.
Wow.
So she would just, wake up 4 in the morning, make these little sort of fried sweet dough type things,
Yeah.
and bag them up, and then sell them to passing people that were going to work in the small town. And I remember spending my childhood there, and that kind of installed the entrepreneurial spirit which I have, and it installed the value of hard work and focus and dedication. So as much as she earned penny, but it kind of set me up for the future.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's my
lovely.
inspiration, as well as some huge figures in the industry and beyond that have inspired me. But she's the one that really planted that seed from early on.
That's a lovely story. And you
Thank you.
followed that through. That's,
Oh,
yeah, she's
100%.
so proud, I imagine.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, what would you say is what big issues have you had to overcome in recent years? I know we've had COVID in the last few years, but what sort of big issues have you had to overcome with your business?
Sure. I think the biggest one I had was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Majority of my business was bricks and mortar, high street locations, shopping malls. Clients essentially had premises.
Yeah.
And it was quite natural that just sort of a year before I start sort of venturing into food tech, just to understand what was happening with deliveries and things like that, just out of
Yeah.
curiosity. And then come March 2020, when the world shut down and, you know, restaurateurs literally shut overnight, but
Yeah.
then the demand for deliveries increased 1,000%. A lot of my clients then started reaching out. So I was assisting them in setting them up for deliveries, and you know, working with the likes of Deliveroo and Just Eat, and
Yeah.
understanding the metrics and everything that went through. So for me, my consultancy for a period of 2 years completely went from bricks and mortar to supporting the virtual world of deliveries and how dark kitchens operate, working with moped drivers instead of waiters, and you know, working with just chefs and no front of house teams. So very, very different dynamics. So that's the biggest impact that I've seen in hospitality. Yeah.
And where do you see that going now? What's the looking forward? What's the future look like?
Yeah, and I think the comparison to that would be, you know, the old you know, dot-com bubble that was spoken about 20 years ago, when we had all these internet startups, and then it got saturated. Well, the world of deliveries is at that same pivotal moment.
Right.
A lot of people went into that world,
Mhm.
and right now it's saturated so much, and a lot of the financials that have been reported, certainly this year into the second quarter, are very much on a downward spiral for sales and conversions. So the future, I think, yes, it will always be there. People will always be ordering through apps and so forth, but
Yeah.
I don't think the demand is going to be as what it was. But there are certain markets that are really taking a step forward, particularly in Asia. There's been a real increase in demand, but I think in the West, it's going to sort of settle down.
So if you're looking at the industry at the moment, what is it that's inspiring you today?
People. It's always been about the people, and that's why I've been in this industry for so long, from the age of 15. You know, it's all about the interaction with people, developing people, just making the best out of it. Hospitality is one of those industries that really focuses and dedicates itself to people power. And for me, it's been all about that and nothing else. Yeah.
So what would you say that you've learned about yourself on this journey?
Wow. I think the biggest thing is certainly to drop the ego. That was a big thing,
Right.
early days. The other one is to understand the true value of human compassion and empathy. That's helped me a lot. As well as the usual stuff, you know, the food, the cuisine, and everything else. But I think it's, for me personally, it's been about exploring people, and regardless of their cultural backgrounds, their race, where they come from, what they preach, doesn't matter. We're all the same. So I think that's been the biggest learning curve for me, certainly.
And what would you recommend to a young person starting out in business today?
In hospitality,
Yeah,
or
in
in
hospitality, yeah.
hospitality, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I will probably say a few things, Nicola. I will probably say, one, definitely lose the ego, leave that at the door. You know, has no place in business whatsoever. And the other one is focus, focus. You know, the true success is being dedicated with pure commitment to your job and your work. Without that, you'll not get anywhere. You know, I left school with very poor GCSEs. I didn't take college. I'd done a year, I dropped out, no university. But it was my focus and attention to detail that propelled me to go beyond, you know, and nothing scares me at all, you know. So that's the advice I would give to a 18-year-old me, or an 18-year-old. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So just thinking about the projects that you're working on at the moment, is there anything that's exciting you at the minute? Anything you want to talk about with what you're working on now?
Sure, absolutely. So, as much as I have my consultancy that specializes in operations,
Mm,
the true project which I'm involved in at the moment is I've created a company that focuses on hospitality management at
right.
junior level,
Yeah.
becoming the next generation of leadership superstars. And I've done that through hosting masterclasses. So they are designed to encourage people to stay in hospitality and beyond. And they are quite different in the way they are delivered. So currently, that's what I'm involved in, and that's what I'm doing. And we've got some really great partners with us who are equally passionate and embrace hospitality to the next level. So that's what I'm doing.
I tell you what, we'll add that to the link in the information when
Yeah,
this video
sure.
goes on
Yeah,
the
no
LinkedIn,
problem.
and then people. All right, well, that was really interesting. Thanks for taking the time to do that today.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nicola.
Cheers.